The courtroom fell into a haunting silence. No one breathed. No one moved. All eyes were locked on the grainy footage flickering to life on the screen. In it, shadows moved awkwardly. Voices murmured instructions. And then, the unmistakable sound of Sean "Diddy" Combs speaking off camera. Within seconds, his twin daughters, Jessie and Delilah, visibly shaken, stood up and walked out. They didn't say a word. They didn't come back. What they saw broke them. This wasn't just celebrity gossip. It wasn't rumor. This was evidence. Shocking, raw, and damning. And it had a name. Freak-off, a term Cassie Ventura, once known as Diddy's partner, now calls the darkest chapter of her life. We've heard the headlines, we've seen the cryptic posts. But in this courtroom, for the first time, the whispers turned into testimonies. Behind closed doors, it was more than just abuse. It was a machine, rehearsed, directed, and enabled by those paid to stay silent. So what really happened in those penthouses? What did that footage show that made his own family crumble? And why does the death of Kim Porter, the mother of his children, still feel like a puzzle missing its most dangerous piece? In the next few minutes, you're going to hear a story that might forever change how you see one of music's most iconic figures. Because what Cassie revealed, under oath, and 8 months pregnant wasn't just her truth. It was a blueprint of control, fear, and love twisted into something darker. This isn't just a trial. This is a reckoning. The lights dimmed in the courtroom, and every heartbeat seemed to echo against the walls. At the prosecution's request, a piece of evidence, long rumored, never confirmed, was about to be played. It was labeled Freak Off 2013. Location, a Miami penthouse. For weeks, the defense had fought to keep it out of court, arguing privacy, irrelevance, even character assassination. But the judge sided with transparency, ruling that the jury had the right to see it. Cameras were turned off. A partial blackout was ordered. Only the jury, attorneys, and a handful of observers, including Diddy's family, were allowed to remain. When the footage started, even Cassie, seated near the jury, didn't blink. Her eyes fixed, her expression unchanging. But across the room, everything shifted. Diddy, who had shown a cool demeanor throughout the trial, suddenly slouched. His fingers clenched together. He didn't look away from the screen, but he didn't look composed either. At about the halfway mark, the silence broke in a way that no one expected. Jessie and Delilah, his 17-year-old twin daughters, stood up. One of them whispered, "No, I can't," before they turned and walked out. No hesitation, no glance back. Their faces were expressionless but deeply shaken. Outside, reporters noted their pale complexions and trembling lips. They were flanked by aides and did not return. What the footage showed hasn't been fully described in public documents, but summaries reveal disturbing details. Cassie appeared with another individual in what prosecutors called a directed scenario. Diddy's voice, clearly identifiable, gave instructions. The video itself was partially blurred, heavily redacted, and yet its emotional gravity was overwhelming. Several jurors looked visibly disturbed. One wiped away tears. Another sat stiffly, jaw locked. These weren't reactions to gossip. They were responses to horror. Cassie's claims that freak-offs were scheduled, choreographed, and filmed were suddenly, undeniably real. Prosecutors stated that the timing of the video, the setup, and her age all aligned with her previous testimony. This wasn't just an invasion of privacy. It was a calculated display of power, control, and psychological submission. When the screen went black, no one said a word. There was no muttering, no shuffling of papers, just silence. The judge calmly instructed the courtroom to take a 15-minute recess, but time felt warped. For those who witnessed it, those minutes stretched on like hours. People stayed seated, stunned, absorbing what they had just seen. Cassie's composure stood in contrast to the devastation around her, but that only amplified her credibility. She had lived this. She had survived this. Observers couldn't stop talking about the moment Diddy's daughters left. Until then, they had been quietly present in court, maintaining family solidarity. But this footage broke that illusion, and with their exit, something shifted. The public watching from the outside sensed it too. This wasn't just a trial about consent anymore. It was about command, power misused, control exerted under the guise of love and protection. The courtroom had witnessed something irreversible, not in the form of physical evidence alone, but emotional truth. The kind that transcends legal jargon and leaves a permanent scar in the minds of everyone watching. And this was just the beginning. Cassie walked into the courtroom with a calm that didn't match the weight of what she was about to say. 8 months pregnant, she adjusted her coat, took a breath, and turned slightly to face the jury. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. A subtle reminder, this wasn't just about the past. This was about protecting a future. From the first question, it was clear the journey she was about to take the courtroom on wouldn't be easy. She began at the beginning. How she met Diddy, how the charm came first. Flowers, lavish trips, whispers of forever, and then the shift. The term freak-off entered her life casually. First introduced as something adventurous. She was 21 and in love, or at least believed she was. He described it as voyeurism, something to deepen their intimacy. But it wasn't romantic. It was rehearsed. He told me what to wear, what to say, what drugs to take, she said. She described how freak-offs became a routine, prepped like a music video shoot, outfits laid out, lights staged, escorts brought in, and all of it documented. She testified that the sessions weren't spontaneous, they were choreographed. He gave directions from behind the camera. Sometimes he was in the room, sometimes he just watched. Text messages flashed across the courtroom screen. In one, "Which color pill?" she asked. His reply, "The green one." Her voice didn't waver, but her words landed with weight. She talked about compliance, fear, and losing herself. "I looked in the mirror one day," she said, "and I didn't recognize who I had become." The prosecution asked her directly, "Did you want to be part of the freak-offs?" She paused. "Sometimes, yes, because it meant I got to be near him, but not the rest of it, not the pressure, not the fear." She wasn't just recounting facts. She was painting a picture of emotional captivity, of love turned into a leash. And as her story unfolded, so did the truth about who Diddy really was behind closed doors. Cassie's testimony deepened. What began as a recount of emotional control soon exposed something darker, something structured. "This wasn't random," she said. "It was planned, like a schedule, like a system." She spoke about how freak-offs weren't just spur-of-the-moment events. They were coordinated, often involving travel, handlers, and carefully selected participants. Sometimes it meant flying to Miami. Other times it was New York, LA, or Ibiza. The cities changed, but the process didn't. "There were always bags packed for me," she explained. "Sometimes I didn't even know where I was going until I landed." What she described sounded less like a relationship and more like a production, complete with producers. Travel agents booked fake styling gigs. Private security teams handled logistics. Assistants prepped hotel rooms, lighting setups, even playlists. They weren't just helping, they knew, she said. She named names: David James, Christina, Karoram. 2 assistants, a travel coordinator, a former creative director. They were all involved, she testified. Some turned away, others made sure it happened. Her words painted a picture of deliberate entrapment. Participants were told to sign NDAs. Some were hired under the guise of modeling or styling. Most were paid. All were controlled. Cassie recalled specific incidents, like when she tried to back out of a trip. I got a message from Christina saying I was expected. That's all it said. Just expected. She said there were times she feared for the other women as much as herself. Some of them were just scared girls like me. Some did it for money. Some didn't know what they were walking into. Her voice cracked, only slightly when she described one trip that lasted 4 days. We were on pills. No one slept. He'd just disappear and come back expecting everything to be ready. The prosecution linked these accounts to financial documents, flights booked under aliases, hotels paid in cash, and burner phones issued before travel. It wasn't just damaging testimony, it suggested organized operation. What she was describing, step by step, met the legal definition of racketeering. Not just personal abuse, institutional abuse, a network that enabled it, profited from it, and silenced it. The courtroom sat still as the prosecution drew a direct line between Diddy's entertainment empire and the alleged abuse. His staff, his money, his infrastructure. And then they asked her the question that tied it all together. Why did you call it a system? Cassie didn't hesitate. Because I wasn't the only one. Because once you know what's expected, it runs. Itself. You stop asking questions, you just obey. That sentence hit hard. Jurors exchanged glances. Observers wrote notes with urgency. This wasn't just about Cassie anymore. It was about who else had been pulled into the machine. As her testimony closed for the day, the prosecution made it clear this was no longer just a relationship gone wrong. This was a machine built to trap people, disguise abuse as consent, and protect the man at the center of it all. The courtroom shifted again when one name resurfaced: Kim Porter. To the public, she was Diddy's longtime partner, the mother of his children, and a successful model in her own right. But to Cassie, she represented something else entirely: a warning. She was always around, Cassie testified. Sure, I knew they were still involved. The prosecution asked about overlaps, moments when Diddy was with both women. Cassie nodded. We weren't public, but we were happening. And so was he and Kim. The timeline blurred intentionally, she said. He never gave clear answers. But one moment burned into her memory when Kim confronted him. She asked questions. She was upset, Cassie recalled. A week later, she was hospitalized. Officially, Kim Porter died of lobar pneumonia in 2018. But Cassie's words cast a shadow. He told me not to talk about it. Said people were watching. Said she was fine. Her voice dipped. But I don't believe that anymore. The courtroom listened as Cassie recounted being told to stay quiet, to not speak to Kim's friends, to avoid the media. He was scared of what I'd say. And then the prosecution revealed a series of texts from Cassie to a friend. In one, she wrote, "If I ever disappear like Kim, it wasn't random." The gallery murmured. Jurors shifted. Cassie was asked, point blank, "Did you fear for your life?" She paused, then answered, "Yes, especially after Kim, because she knew things. And he knew she knew." With that single statement, the room fell silent again, not because of what was said, but what was implied. Kim Porter was no longer just a name in Diddy's past. She was now part of a deeper narrative, one laced with fear, secrecy, and consequence. And Cassie, standing in that courtroom, wasn't just telling her story. She was speaking for someone who no longer could. By the next court session, the tone had shifted. Cassie's testimony had opened the floodgates, and others were now ready to speak. Former employees, drivers, security, even a hairstylist. The prosecution moved quickly, lining up new witnesses to confirm her account. And every new name added weight. First came Israel Flores, a former hotel security officer. Calm, professional, and precise. "I saw her with a bruised eye," he said, referencing a 2016 incident. I was told to ignore it, but I logged it anyway. Next, a former assistant took the stand. Her identity was protected, but her story matched Cassie's. I was instructed to transport briefcases across state lines. Never open them, never ask questions. Just deliver them and destroy the burner phone afterward. When asked what she thought was inside, she answered plainly, cash or drugs, or both. Then came Daniel Phillip, a male escort. His testimony was chilling. I was hired in 2012 and 2013, multiple times. At first I thought it was a job. Then it got strange, controlling, coercive. He claimed Diddy orchestrated everything. He told me what to wear, where to stand, what to say, and he watched. Each witness was different roles, different years, but the patterns were identical. Controlled access, NDAs, payments, rehearsals, surveillance. It wasn't anecdotal anymore. It was systemic. The prosecution began building something bigger, a map of behavior that spanned years, cities, and layers of enablers. They weren't just proving Diddy's actions. They were proving method, repetition, and intent. Even jurors who had remained stoic began taking notes with urgency. Some nodded. Others avoided eye contact with Diddy entirely. By now, the image of Sean Combs as a charismatic mogul was vanishing. In its place stood a figure surrounded by silence, and those paid to keep it. And as the witness list grew, so did the sense that this wasn't just about one man's private life. It was about a system designed to protect him, until now. By the next court session, the tone had shifted. Cassie's testimony had opened the floodgates, and others were now ready to speak. Former employees, drivers, security, even a hairstylist. The prosecution moved quickly, lining up new witnesses to confirm her account, and every new name added weight. First came Israel Flores, a former hotel security officer. Calm, professional, and precise. I saw her with a bruised eye, he said, referencing a 2016 incident. I was told to ignore it, but I logged it anyway. Next, a former assistant took the stand. Her identity was protected, but her story matched Cassie's. I was instructed to transport briefcases across state lines. Never open them. Never ask questions. Just deliver them and destroy the burner phone afterward. When asked what she thought was inside, she answered plainly, cash or drugs, or both. Then came Daniel Phillip, a male escort. His testimony was chilling. I was hired in 2012 and 2013, multiple times. At first I thought it was a job. Then it got strange, controlling, coercive. He claimed Diddy orchestrated everything. He told me what to wear, where to stand, what to say, and he watched. Each witness was different roles, different years, but the patterns were identical. Controlled access, NDAs, payments, rehearsals, surveillance. It wasn't anecdotal anymore, it was systemic. The prosecution began building something bigger. A map of behavior that spanned years, cities, and layers of enablers. They weren't just proving Diddy's actions, they were proving method, repetition, and intent. Even jurors who had remained stoic began taking notes with urgency. Some nodded, others avoided eye contact with Diddy entirely. By now, the image of Sean Combs as a charismatic mogul was vanishing. In its place stood a figure surrounded by silence, and those paid to keep it. And as the witness list grew, so did the sense that this wasn't just about one man's private life. It was about a system designed to protect him until now. As the courtroom emptied that day, one image lingered. Diddy sat alone at the defense table, eyes hollow, shoulders hunched. His daughters had walked past him without a word. The gallery, once filled with whispers of admiration, now held only quiet judgment. This wasn't just about Cassie anymore. It wasn't even just about Diddy. It was about the structure, the system, that allowed a man to operate with unchecked control for years. The video, the testimonies, the silent exits, each moment stripped away the persona, revealing the pattern beneath. What had been whispered in studios, parties, and back rooms was now laid bare under oath. The music mogul, the media darling. The life of the party, all replaced by a man facing the truth, finally unable to spin it. And as more voices come forward, one thing is clear. Silence doesn't last forever. What you choose to do with this story, whether you speak it, share it, or remember it, matters. Because reckoning isn't just a courtroom event, it's what happens when the world finally refuses to look away. If this video opened your eyes, share it, speak up, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we keep uncovering the stories that demand to be heard.